I had worked with nationalized institutions, international institutions, fintech companies, and even cooperatives. The journey has been more driven by the passion for transforming complex legacy systems into agile, customer-centric organizations, and motivated by the sector's critical role in economic development. I think that would summarize it. So the change leadership requires vision, influence, patience, and managing resistance also. Failures, I would say, humanizes the leaders. They build resilience and they teach us the value of learning fast. The CXOs in banking sector are very slow decisions. Institutions need to invest in change management. I think that is the biggest drawback that they have. The finance that we are looking at today is not going to be relevant. Financial services will be embedded into everyday applications and devices. So every institution needs to encourage experimentation through innovative labs, partnership with startups, and fail fast mindsets. Well, thank you, Prasad, for having me. And rather than saying as a more of an interview, let's keep it more of as a dialogue and share our experiences because you also come with a whole lot of experience out in your field, and Automation Edge has really done wonders in this space. Now, you have asked a very pertinent question. If I have to share my journey in BFSI and what actually motivated me, there are a couple of things that I would want to share. And what I'll try to do is I try to keep it as agnostic as possible, not specifically mentioning the institutions I have worked with or the ones which I'm consulting, obviously for some confidentiality reasons and things. But if you look at if I look at my journey and if I look back, it has been beyond 35 years, not realizing that it's been beyond 35 years, where I started as a temporary assistant with LIC of India to become a CEO and then now a thought leader and an independent directorships in various organizations. So it all began with a very strong foundation in risk management, governance across institutions. But then it evolved more into strategic leadership and got into roles where I required to give strategic direction, looked into digital transformations, governance across institutions. And basically, if you see why I was drawn to this sector, it was because of the critical role that the BFSI plays in the economic development and the unique challenges it presents. So you have to balance the innovations, compliance, and most importantly, customer trust. So I remember in LIC, the culture that we were embedded with was you are playing with the money of a potential widow. So that sort of that was ingrained into our skill and system. And what really motivated me initially, and it still does, is the opportunity to impact systems at scale. And whether it is navigating through the regulatory landscapes, the changing regulatory landscapes, or introducing new cutting edge digital banking services, or enhancing the financial inclusion part of it, I've always been drawn by the potential to make the financial systems more resilient, efficient, and equitable. Now, just to give you an example, I quit my job of international career and came back to India. I also looked at a cooperative bank because there I wanted to understand the fabric of relationship management. So these are the institutions who do not have best of technologies, do not have best of products, and yet the connect that they have with the customer is so huge. And therefore, if you look at the career span, I had worked with nationalized institutions, international institutions, fintech companies, and even cooperatives. So, it has been a very bad spectrum, a broad spectrum that I worked with. And over the years, I have led several transformation initiatives, which would include the digitization of traditional banking systems, integration of fintech solutions, and that was always with a clear focus on risk mitigation and sustainability, because otherwise you'll have a lot of frugal things out there. Yeah, so I think the journey has been more driven by the passion for transforming complex legacy systems into agile, customer-centric organizations, and motivated by the sector's critical role in economic development. I think that would summarize it.
Yeah, well, and that's why like that is the secret sauce of your success, because like some people who do work as a job versus like the somebody who has it's in the DNA, their passion, then the results are different. And then now we discovered your success part. So what some pivotal moment in your career, if you have to describe that, which has shaped up your leadership style. So you can share those few.
Well, Prasad, I think there's no short answer to this because the career has spanned over years, and there is no. I wouldn't say that I can be prototyped into a particular leadership style. And as you are aware, leadership will evolve as per the situations. And when I reflect back, there have been several defining moments that actually shaped my leadership philosophy. Initially, when we take up the first leadership role, then it's a different one. So there, what it matters is you have to transform yourself from an individual contributor to a leader, and that courses you to shift from doing to being an enabler. Yeah, and therefore the impact there is more to uh, you know uh, it sort of develops your awareness to delegation, accountability, team dynamics. So that is something which I learned initially when I was fresh in the leadership role. But as in when we grew, there are times when you have some crisis management or high stakes are at stake. So then that time the leadership changes. So then what matters really is it tests your decision making abilities and more so your emotional resilience and the ability to inspire in spite of being under pressure. Now, I will not name the institution, but in one of the institutions, there was a campaign which was run on television, which sort of brought a run on a bank sort of a scenario in the bank which I was working, and I was working there at the head position out there. So, taking the team together and keeping my calm for an solicited sort of a media exposure that was being given, negative one, that was very challenging. And so at that point in time, it was a different quality that I found in myself that I could be resilient. I could have more of emotional resilience out there. Then there are different types. Okay? See, when I changed my roles, also leading diverse and cross-functional teams. So when I first stepped out in the international market, it was something completely different. And why it mattered there more was because I was working across silos, building unity, listening skills, ability to unify different people with different perspectives, with different backgrounds. A simple hand gesture by one community can mean differently to others. And then leading such cross functionality and cross nationality teams was again something different. So that was quite an experience, which it fostered inclusive leadership and more of a collaborative problem solving skills that I had. Then again, at that point in time, at one point, and I'm sharing this for the benefit of every one of us. See, at times when you assume leadership roles, you also get some unexpected feedbacks. So receiving candid feedback also it up my leadership qualities in some ways because why it mattered was because of feedback were very honest, and especially they came when it was unexpected, and it sort of puts you into self awareness. So that prompted more of humility, the emotional intelligence, and more importantly the growth mindset. So the feedback which I had received from one of my peer, not peer, my junior, actually put me into a growth mindset. So that again shaped up my leadership abilities out there. Another important aspect which I felt was now that when I mentor people and when I was being mentored, at those were the moments where I could see a sea change in my leadership thought process overall. And why it matters? Because both these roles they teach you about influence without authority and the power of long term development. So the self development or development of people around you, that is something which I learned in mentoring and being mentored out there. So it installs servant leadership values, empathy, and all of those sort of things. The next phase that came in my life when I started consulting was driving change and transformation. See, when you are a CEO of an organization or you're in a position, then it is very different to lead or to transform. But when you are a consultant, your leadership style has to change considerably. So the change leadership requires vision, influence, patience, and managing resistance also. So normally with authority, you don't have much of resistance, and if you have, you can possibly carve it down. But when you are in a consultant's role and you are wearing a different hat, then you also need to manage those resistance. And what impacted it on my leadership was is that I was able to build strategic thinking, stakeholder engagement, and more importantly, I would say perseverance. Um, Prasad, I will be failing if I don't acknowledge what failures taught me or what setbacks taught me in my leadership journey also. And why it really matters because failures, I would say, humanizes the leaders. They build resilience And they teach us the value of learning fast, because once you've made a mistake, you just can't linger with it. You need to quickly change and adapt and move ahead. So that is something which failures teach us, and that has taught me also. And the impact those failures had was they encouraged my humility. I could get the risk taking ability, but calculated risk taking ability, and at the same time compassion for others mistakes also. So if they have done some mistake, I possibly would be able to empathize with them, understand whether it was by commitment of omission or by commission, and those distinction, I think it matters. So I would say cross cultural global exposure, all of those mattered. But in the journey in last 2 3 decades, what I've learned is the best way to keep on evolving our leadership is to reflect, sit back and reflect, stepping back a bit, reflecting. And why it matters is because we pursue if we pursue reflecting during the inflection points, then we become more recalibrated with the values, the intentions, and the overall value system that we would want to nurture. And this, I think, leads to more conscious, value based leadership style. That is something which I felt has
Yeah.
shifted.
And I think like whatever your talk, well, it just comes out of your experience. So a lot of
Yeah.
like the good points like you have made. One is like you talked about like the adaptability. And
Yes.
that's what like the Darwin says, like the species that survives are not like the most strongest one or like the intelligent one, but most adaptable to the change. Because like
Yes.
the way the technology, the way the world or the global geopolitics or everything is changing, you need to change yourself, you need to adapt the thing. Another valid point you made, like it is not a one who fits for all. So
Yes.
it is like at the different strokes to the different folks. So you need to really identify the things. And then the point where like you are like on the both side of the table as a CEO and as a consultant. I mean, and those are like the really, and then the biggest thing you said, like the learning from the failures. And that's what it is said. Like the failure is a milestone of the success. So I think that's where like it comes.
And one more thing I forgot to add, Prasad, was on learning from others' mistakes. So, having seen so many top CEOs and board members very closely, understanding, oh, they could have possibly done this better. That also is a big learning curve. So, that if I forgot to mention that as well. But that helped me and enriched me considerably.
Correct, correct. So I think with such exhaustive knowledge and an experience, so you have taken like a lot of role where like the institutions they were struggling, and then you like really turn them into like the success. So any specific strategy or like how did you do that? Like there are like the organization when you were you joined, I mean they were struggling, but you took them to the different level. Like how did you do that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, basically, the turnaround strategies is often differed from institution to institution. So, if I were to look at, the basic strategy pillars, if I may so call, are more like strategic responding. Understanding the focus where the institution business model is there, understanding the profitability, the underserved segments, and all of those sort of things. So, if I were to categorize sort of things, so the common strategies I would say for any institution is first thing we need to understand is, do they have a strategic response repositioning that is required, if at all, positioning or repositioning that is required. Second important aspect when you bring out on a turnaround is normally on the cost optimization, because when you talk about turnaround, that means there is some problem, some stress, and most many of the times it is more the financial stress that is there. So then you will need to look at the cost optimization aspect. So rationalizing the operations, reducing overheads, or automating the processes. And automating the processes, I thought, was something which yielded most of the results in many of the situations. And I'll come to it in detail later. Uh, because many of the times, most of the organizations were not adaptable to change, and therefore they were struggling. So the moment we could be the catalyst to bring about that change, everything just went on and they just zoomed up. So the third important aspect across the spectrum in BFSI would be the digital transformation, by leveraging of technology for scale, efficiency, and most importantly, the customer centric innovations. I think that is very important. Other pillar I would say for things is the risk and compliance overall. Strengthening governance. You should uh, justice should not be done. It should also appear to have been done, and everybody across the value chain should acknowledge that justice is done. So from that perspective, strengthening the governance. Sorry, my mistake. And looking at the credit risk frameworks or the regulatory relationships. I mean, whosoever be the regulator, whether it's the IRDA, the RBI, the SEBI, or any of those, how do you manage relationship with them? How do you take them in confidence? Also, is one of the great turnaround strategy that is there. And of course, the normal ones: leadership, cultural reset. When you talk about specific SIG banks, it's more of the capital, the liquidity management, and those sort of things. But if I were to look at the specifics that I thought could that led to the turnaround, especially in case of if I would categorize them, separately for banks, fintechs, insurance companies, and so on. Then if I were to talk about banks, I would say improving the asset quality. That was prime everywhere, and I was very aggressively involved in the NPA management, the ARC. I was the first one to bring in acceptance of security receipts in case of ARC transactions for the entire cooperative sector. Or rather, I did the first securitization tranche in India for securitization of portfolios. That was way back in 90s, 92, 93, when HDFC and LIC Housing did a first tranche of securitization in India. That the first one that was there. And of course, creating credit monitoring tools that also helped a lot. Tightening credit underwriting and especially use of AIML and robotics for risk analytics, that helped me in improving the asset quality. The other important thing was branch rationalization and digitization. So allocating your field force to do more productive jobs and replacing those mundane jobs with robotics and digitization and other things. That was an effective thing which worked very well for banks. Customer segmentation and focusing, use of analytics to actually segment your customers. They give them value propositions which are more contextual to them. That was, I would say, a very generalized sort of an approach that we had to take in majority of the organizations. Then again, tech stack modernization. Most of the banks today are loaded with legacy systems, and therefore, many times it's not possible to change your legacy systems. That's where something robotics comes in play, where आप दर्जी बन जाते हो. You can stitch between you stitch between the two systems, and then you are able to take things further. I'll give you a small example. We had this merger of few nationalized banks out there. Now they were on two different core banking systems, and yet on one particular day you had to ensure that the customer experience is seamless for across the customers of the banks. There, rather than changing the entire core banking onto one, it is not something that you can do overnight. That's where we used robotics, and we could stitch in those two legacy systems out there. And then over a period of around 18 to 24 months, the bank was able to shift on to a new core banking, and then things were stabilized. So these managing or finding innovative ways even to look at your traditional stacks is something which are very good strategies, I would say. And I cannot undermine the workforce redeployment and upskilling of workforce. That is also very critical. Now that changes when you look for a fintech companies. Now in fintech companies, I think the strategies are more focused on pivoting the business models, shifting their focus, from a B2B or a BaaS to SaaS sort of a model. Look at the unit economics of those. Or most important thing that is important for them is the burn rate control, or the regulatory alignment. You have come out with a thought process of easing out some problem statement, but how that is going to fly with the regulator, in the thought process of the regulator, that is very important. So guiding and aligning it to their thought process is something which helped me bring a turnaround in them. Then again, the regulatory alignment and simplification, product simplification, because many times, these technocrats, they think from their technology perspective, but then what it means to the customer, what is the benefit it brings to the customer, that's important. And of course, for NBFCs, it would be more of the portfolio alignment, more of the liquidity restoration and all of those things. So it's no one size fits all, but they're all tailored. So in short, what I would, so there are different strategies for different life cycle that the institution is in. If they are distressed, then it is more of cost cut, asset sale, leadership change, restructuring. If they are stabilizing, then it's more of operational fixes, the brand repair, cultural reset, and things. And when you're looking for scaling, then of course innovation, strategic partnerships, growth engines, those are the things that would possibly take. But I think what is most important is, um, I would say the most notable turnaround was with a mid-sized bank facing problem of inefficiencies and declining customer trust. And by implementing a combination of process engineering and RPA, we could build a customer-centric approach and a cultural shift. And we reverse the performance trends within 15 months. And thanks to use of robotics that we could do that, slicing, dicing customer portfolio. That was very, that's something which I would say is a milestone in my career.
I think it's well put. So, I mean, as you know, like a lot of evolution has happened in like the banking, on the manual process to like the AI digital banking. But what role did you play in this transformation? Like the various roles you have played in last few decades. So, uh, how and what role you have played?
Yeah. Okay. So, see, I think the role that you need to play does not come from the position you hold. So, I would say my significant achievement, um, would be I ha- I could build a mindset of challenging the status quo and pushing things, saying, "Is there a better way of doing it?" And I think I would give it to one of my mentor, Mr. Murthy, who was general manager in LIC of India. And he was the IT head and he taught me. And he said, Vikrant, I'm picking you as a problem solver. We wanted to build a homegrown, sort of a system for LIC housing finance. That was a time when I could sense and understand that how technology can play a role and how you can influence the entire customer journey by just giving your suggestions irrespective of the position you hold. I was just a executive assistant at that point in time, and what I could do was I could create the loan offer letter by just a click of a button. That was when the technologies were already there. It was just a plug and play of a few things. And I mind me, I'm not a technical person, but still I could do that at that point in time by just keeping my ears and eyes open. I don't know coding, I don't understand technology, but possibly I'm the only person or one of the few people who understand banking and technology better, and that outlook is something which I learned there. But if I were to look at my significant achievement, was building a trusted platform to bridge that would bridge the strategic thinking with execution of BFSI, fintech, and the emerging techs out there. So when I look at the digital transformation roadmaps that I was able to create, which were more regulatory compliant, at the same time customer centric. So those initiatives and those uh, projects which I have handled, I think they are very, very satisfying for me. And in the entire process, again, the RPA has been very sort of the go-to partner for me in the entire thing. Um, so I think I would sum up rather than giving specifics, and of course, I will not be able to talk about a specific thing for a specific organization that I have done. But I think to me, being catalyst is not just a firm today. I had this philosophy of being a catalyst to bring about a change with clarity and confidence, and that's what I'm proud of, I would say.
That's really great. So, I mean, as you said, like you talked about like the RPA or AI technology. So, how had I mean, it has helped like improving the operational efficiency and then some other efficiencies in the BFSI sector. Like, so, I mean, is it significant? I mean, today, like, have we achieved it? Do you still see like there are like the areas or the gaps those can be bridged as like the generative AI or like the agentic AI which would take care.
Yeah, I think so. If you look at the evolution in the banking sector, I would say it is nothing short of a revolutionary change and evolution that has happened. I remember in my olden days, career days, that the major changes would come, say, after 5 or 10 years or so. And today, the major changes comes, unfortunately, after every 10 days. I'm not exaggerating, but that is what the scenario is. See, I've witnessed banking transform from a paper-heavy, brand-centric model to more like a seamless, omni-channel customer experience powered by robotics, by AI, big data, predictive. I would not say predictive, but even prescriptive, actionable analytics, and that's what we boast of in saying. So it has come a long way out there. Clearly, in the earlier days, digitization meant only core banking. So when the bank was on a core banking, they would say, "Oh, we are digitized banks." But that's not relevant today. Then came the internet, mobile banking, and all of those. But today, what is really important is, can you give a hyper personalization to your customers by use of AI ML? Can you use real time fraud detection? Can you use credit scoring where you will be able to give a yes or a no answer to your customer in matter of minutes and not matter of hours? Forget about the days. Do you have intelligent customer service through chatbots or virtual assistants and things? So these are the things that are actually making you very relevant. Now, if you look at in my journey overall, I've been able to integrate all the digital channels in few institutions, including mobile apps, the UPI, the internal automation of credit processes, audit processes, all of those. I work with banks, fintechs, with which are architect AI-driven risk engines or robo advisory models or even digital onboarding platforms that are there. And we have used robotics in each of those steps out there. I've also advised on API strategy or ecosystem play, which helps legacy banks to become platform banks. So it's more of offering banking as a platform with embedded finances and all of those, partnering with fintechs and third-party developers. So banking has, by and large, evolved from paper-based to not just paperless, but AI-based thing, and it has a profound impact. Now, the AI enables intelligent decision making, and that is something which is very relevant to customer. Today, the customer needs instant gratification, and for instant gratification, it is humanly impossible to do the math and the calculation and the underwriting, so called, in banking parlance of a customer if you were to give him an instant gratification. And therefore, use of AI, it enables decision making from credit underwriting, fraud analytics. It reduces the human error, it shortens the process. See, until now, the focus of most of the institutions was on a jazzy customer facing applications. Now, the consultants like me, we tell them it's nice to give them a jazzy app once, but if you are not able to sustain the customer experience throughout, it is not sustainable. If your risks are way too much, or if your operational processes are not good enough and they are not consistent, then you will be losing it out on that. And therefore, enabling the backend processes to be resilient to give a sustainable customer experience is something which I think is more important. And the shift now is from customer facing to backend operational building efficiencies and effectiveness. That is something which is there. Robotics has helped me, in streamlining repetitive tasks. So it not only reduces the operational cost, but it also improves the turnaround time and compliance with greater accuracy. So I think that is very important. So if we were to, sort of list a few of the most low hanging or lowest hanging use cases which any institution in today's world should look at, is use of AI and customer onboarding. Prasad, you are aware that with Automation Edge, we have been able to implement, uh, ve- uh, 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 you know, uh, underwriting of something as complex as a housing loan, or as easy as a personal loan to business. Forget about hours and days. So that is very important. Onboarding customer, KYC automation, and by KYC automation, I'm not just talking about the Aadhaar-based authentication, because there are a lot of frauds happening. There is the institution, I tell you, a very branded, reputed institution which had 150 applications with a same photograph but different Aadhaar numbers. So these are the things where it's not just the digital onboarding I'm talking of. It's about the risk managed digital onboarding by which can be done by use of robotics. So then when you look at loan processing, reconciliations, fraud detection, monitoring, customer service automation, chatbots, regulatory reporting. Then you look at trade execution agreements, settlements, your client reporting, portfolio updates, risk assessment, fees, commissions, calculations, all of those. A very interesting thing I'll tell you in insurance sector, robotics has played a great role even in claims processing. So now, extraction of data, claim form, validation, eligibility. To the extent, Prasad, you will not be surprised. I'm sure you're aware of it. But we have been able to use cognitive bots for financial advisory for what is the best insurance policy suited for you. We have been able to use machine vision in check processing and document recognition, or hyper automation combining RPA, AI/ML for end-to-end process orchestrations. And believe it or not, we have been able to even do a drone-based assessment for insurance for property, vehicle damage, and crop damage. That's how it has got. So if I were to say, give you some ballpark numbers, uh, there have been institutions and instances we have been able to reduce a tat from 7 days to few hours to few seconds. The accuracy in reconciliation has improved from say 90% to more than 99.8%. The compliance reporting, which was manual, delayed, has become more real time automated. The UPI fraud monitoring, credit monitoring, or see UPI, it's very it's, I would say, relatively easy to manage frauds in cards, because then there is some latency that you have. But now with UPI, you know, it's in that fraction of a millisecond that you need to ensure that those frauds are, we are able to ring fence around them. And I'm glad that by use of robotics and AI, we have been able to bring that to a real time automated solutions out there. Manual efforts, I would say, have reduced by beyond 80-85% in institutions. So I do see, these are the game changers. No two ways about it.
So I think you said it well. So uh, there are a lot, when vital role like this technology has played, and which is really like helping the CXO. And then
Yeah.
you are part of the CXO now being a consultant. So when you interact with the CXOs in the BFSI sector, so what are the key priorities or the challenges you observe in their decision making process? And typically it comes to adapting the new technologies. So how do you guide them in balancing the innovation with regulatory compliance and risk? So you already talked about like the compliance and the risk, but like that acceptability. I mean, like at times, like they said, oh, when this is uh, the the new technology, or like everyone is talking about it. But when it comes to like the adaptability, who comes first? So what is like your experience, like how these CXOs are like, reacting to those things?
Yeah. So, and I should be
Very
partnered.
question.
Very no, not tricky, but I see in the overall process, I've learned to empathize with them, and if they behave in a certain manner, I've got to the root and understood why they behave in a certain manner. So, typically speaking, Prasad, fortunately or unfortunately, the CXOs in banking sector are very slow decision makers. That's my experience, and the reason they are so slow, because there is a lot of balancing act that they need to do. So in fact, when I started interacting with them or with my peers, because even when I was talking with my CTO, most of the tiffle I would have is was my CTO. He would say, "Oh, why do you want this?" And I would say, "No, this is what I want. This is the customer experience I want." And then they would come back and say, "Oh no, this is the latest technology." So at times when I would demand something for customer, they would say, "I don't have it." At times they would bring a cutting edge technology, and I would say, "Oh well, but this is not suitable for my set of priorities now." So we would always have those things when I was in when I was employed, and now when I'm consulting, the priorities are definitely changed. But the CXOs in BFSI, they operate in a very thin, tightly regulated space, and it's a very rapidly evolving environment that they are in of late now. So in my experience, the decision making is shaped by three things. One is the customer centric innovation. They need to stay relevant through personalization, hyper personalization now, or digital first services. Then the operational efficiency, so that we're able to leverage automation, AI, data for reducing cost and responsive times and other things. And the third important aspect is risk governance and compliance. So they're more compliance centric, and more of a RBI tick mark exercise. Acha, cyber security ke RBI ne ye bola hai. Okay, this is what we have. So navigating by increasing the complex regulatory landscape is what they are looking at. But and the primary challenges they face. So these are the environmental challenges they have. The primary challenges that CXO face today is they always have a legacy infrastructure. So it's not easily scalable or interpretable with modern tech, and that's where robotics comes in play. Then there is also a very fear of regulatory missteps. अरे मैंने किसी के साथ टाई अप कर लिया, आई हैव कोलैबोरेटेड विद अ फिनटेक कंपनी, बट देन have I is that a good marriage, is that a good fit, is it going to last, or is it going to be a regulatory mistake that has happened? Then again, the organizational inertia, cultural aspects anywhere you go are a biggest hurdle everywhere. So transforming cultural capabilities is often harder than transforming your systems. It's easy to replace a system, but you can't replace your human around it. And then the technology overall, sorting hype. Now today you see there's such a hype about blockchain, but there are very few scalable solutions and viable solutions which are actually implemented. So these are the constraints and the challenges that they have. So when I have to advise them, I have to wear a different hat at different times. So my role is not just to suggest tools, but then I have to serve as a strategic filter and an enabler. So then normally what I use to guide the CFOs is first thing I look at is tech, which is risk free, tech fit and risk tech fit analytics. So mapping of the proposed solution. So if at all I'm suggesting a solution, is it going to bring a ROI? It's very important, but that's not all. Is it good for regulatory and risk implications, especially around data privacy, audit trails, then explainability in the AI segment? Then I also help them in interpreting, uh, you know, uh, what is in between the words and letters in the regulatory circulars that come in, so that we understand what is the intent and not just the tick mark exercise that we do, so that they can innovate within the guardrails rather than just being in the fear of whether I'm right or wrong. And then, see, when we create roadmaps, normally people will do that. But my approach is slightly different. I do a layered sort of an innovative roadmap. So, prioritizing the scalability within technologies like the RPA was there. Or at the same time, you also need to gradually build the architecture for a more transformative shifts, like an AI or a platform banking, those sort of things. So my roadmap is more of a short term and then a long term. You start with the short term, but that's not going to take you, and because there's no one size fits all, and then you start simultaneously building on a more transformative shift also. Plus, again, the cross-function alignment, the language of CTO, CRO, CFO, because I've worked in those different roles, I'm able to, build all those things together. So if I were to answer your question, and I'm sorry, Prasad, I'm so passionate about this, I keep on talking. But if I were to tell in a short, see, I help CXOs shift their question from can we do this to how do we do this with responsibly, sustainably, and strategically. So innovation is not experimental, but it's a competitive edge that we are able to build with a solid ground. That's what would be. That's how I suggest and guide it.
So coming to the things like based on your experience, where like you interact with a lot of the industry leaders, and then what do you like understand from them? Like what could be like the upcoming transformative, impactful technologies in the BFSI sector for the next 3 to 5 years? And then how should organizations prepare to integrate this effectively, ensuring like a seamless customer? Because at the end of the day, customer experience that everyone is striving hard for, like saying, how do I make their life simple? Because the happy customer, it brings like more stickiness, more business. So everyone is striving hard to get that. So
Yeah. So, Prasad, I'm sorry if I will not be able to give a correct technical answer to this. But from my vintage standpoint as a strategic advisor to banks, fintechs, and even tech-driven startups, I think the next 3 to 5 years we'll see more of converging waves of innovation that will redefine, how the financial services are delivered. or the experiences that the customers will be getting. And if I were to look at the top transformative technologies, I would say AI machine learning is definitely the most important one. So moving from back end automation to frontline intelligence, and I am sure you understand from a technical perspective how difficult it is for to move from a back automation only to a frontline intelligence, where the response time is so fraction of milliseconds. So we expect a wider adoption of explainable AI in credit scoring, fraud detection, personalization, financial planning, and even regulatory reporting. Even for simple tasks, people have started using AI chatbots and all of those things. So I do see a lot of sea change coming in AI and ML there. Second, from a business model perspective, I see a lot of changes happening in the banking. So banks may not be relevant, but banking will remain relevant. So I'm looking at more of an embedded finance and open banking sort of a system. So you're aware that in Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, they are almost coming into banking space. So banks will not be able to be Amazons and Flipkarts of the world,
Competing within the
become banks. Yes. So I do see open banking, embedded finance as the transformative things. Banks becoming more as platforms and not just service providers. APIs, seamless financial services with third-party ecosystems, retail, logistics, agri-tech, all of those things will be coming in. Um, the third important aspect I think which is coming up is the blockchain and smart contracts. So blockchain is not just about crypto. It's about what I'm talking here is not the digital currencies. Yes, they are going to be game changers, but here what I'm talking about is distributed ledger tech, which will reshape the entire financing, KYC, cross-border payments, compliances. New models are coming up. Tokenization. Today, you would have seen we have REITs in place, regulate. So just to make it simple, supposing if there is a building, so today you will see that the flats or office space are sold. Now we will come to a scenario where a square feet of space is sold and it is jointly owned by 10 different people because we are tokenizing the entire building. Or tomorrow, a country like Pakistan, which is bankrupt, possibly may come up with one of their monument to be tokenized and brought in for sale. And then how we might be able to fund those. Now, in fact, I'm consulting a company in Germany, NBFC in Germany, to help them finance tokenized assets. So these are all based on blockchain and smart contracts. So that is something which is going to be a game changer. The fourth important thing I think is going to be more of generative AI. Conversational banking will take place. So you will see a leap from not just the chatbots, but it will go to more of context-aware virtual agents who can handle complex queries, be very proactive in the advisory, and even voice biometrics for authentication, and those things will come up. Another important thing is in cybersecurity and other aspects, you will see with quantum computing and quantum restrained security, digital trust is becoming very important. So that's going to become a crutch. So, currency innovations, zero trust architecture, encryptions, post quantum cryptography, these are going to be very crucial. And today they might sound, far fetched, but they're just around the corner. And from an AI thing, I think from AI and RPA, more contextual to us, I think the RPA too, the hyper automation, it's not just about the mimicking the tasks, but understanding the context, the exceptions. So merger of, I would say, AI ML driven RPA, which I call as RPA 2 or RPA 2.5, is something which is going to be very important. So that's to answer the first part of your question. Now, if at all the organization go to prepare themselves, I think the best thing you should be somewhere in Africa, where you don't have to go to the legacy and you are just on the latest next generation applications, or you should be in Japan, where it is so outdated that you can just store everything and revamp. Unfortunately, we are in India and we are in most of the world is not in those true extremes. So I think most important part, as I see over my experiences, first thing is they need to adopt a platform mindset. So they need to move away from siloed systems to modular, interpretable architecture, more of a Lego systems which are there, which will allow you to integrate with minimal friction. Again, RPA plays a major role in there. Second important thing is you cannot undermine prioritizing data governance. The GDPR equivalent to the PDPD coming in India, which is now mandated. So a robust data strategy is not negotiable. AI and personalizations they can be very good only to the effect that they are ethically and qualitatively good from a governance standpoint of view. So the customer consent are absolutely essential. So the data strategy is pretty important. Third important aspect is you may have technology. There's no doubt of technology, and that will keep on evolving. But what is required is these institutions don't invest in change management. So technology without adoption is wasted, na? Unless see, I there was an institution where I had purchased very high enabled AI tool. Uh, I'll tell you virtual analytics, SaaS virtual analytics. I had purchased when that institution was only after ICICI, second institution after ICICI to actually adopt that. But now I understand when I've left the institution, it's not being used at all. So unless there is an adoption, that's of no use. Technology is wasted. So continuous upskilling, internal evangelism, stakeholder buy-in are very crucial. And institutes need to invest in change management. I think that is the biggest drawback that they have. One of my colleague of a bank CEO, he would say, Vikrant, I think it's not the question of whether the technology available or not. It's the question of will to adopt. So I think will is important out there. And then again, organization should not say, I'll do it all. They need to do a pilot with purpose. They should adopt a test and scale model. Just because they should not get into a me too. Understand your business model, understand your customer base, and then you pilot it, to test it, and then you scale it. That is the best approach so that you can validate the ROI, you can get the compliance fit with it, and then you can scale with confidence. And come what may, Prasad, one thing I have understood is technology is as good only if it is human centered designed. Apple is still the leader today. Why? Because it's easier. So the customer journey, I think, end of the day is most important. So whether what are the interfaces you are using, they are intuitive, empathetic, inclusive. They should be customer centric. That's, I think, most important aspect. So when somebody, yeah. So just to in BFSI, the winners will be only those, not those who adopt the technology, but those who will be able to embed it most meaningfully. So they need to balance innovation with resilience and customer delight, and of course with regulatory discipline, no doubt about it.
And as everyone says, like the customer is a king. So I mean, the more you please them, and then I mean that determines your the promoter score, and that's how you
Got it.
you
Got
can't
it.
can't right. So as a champion of the green finance and then ESG integration, what are the some of the key strategies you advocate for aligning FIs for with their sustainability goals?
So
And how do you measure the success, the ESG initiatives within the organization?
yeah. So see, India has signed up to ESG framework in France, and so by 2030, uh, we have opted for. You are all aware of those 15 different things that we have to look at, and the scope 3 outlines that the sustainability goals are to be monitored more by financial institutions. So, A, the financial institutions should adopt and look at ESG integration. B, they also need to monitor and ensure that the funding that they do is more in line with ESG. So, why this sustainable finance has gained importance? Because we have signed up to the 2030 agreement that is there. Aligning the financial institutions with sustainability goals will require, it should not be a tick mark compliance exercise in my view, and unless it is embedded into that strategic value creation, it will be impossible. So now that's a different area which I consult in, but I'm a strong advocate for a multi-layered, a pragmatic approach which is grounded both in impact and business continuity. See, because on one hand, you just cannot be saying, "Oh, I'm going to be ESG green finance compliant," but if there's no business continuity, it doesn't make sense. So I think that is very important. So in my view, I am trying to take a balanced approach in this. So ESG should not be an isolated vertical. That's what I advocate. And I guide institutions to integrate ESG matrix into the credit underwriting, investment decision making, procurement, product development. For example, look at the green bonds or ESG linked loans or climate risk adjusted lending policies. So these are the very effective tools. So for example, out of a portfolio of of X, you need to keep X percentage only to ESG, uh, uh, sort of climate resilient technologies or EV lending or those sort of things that is there. Or we give the best thing is to give a higher rate of return to say NGOs who are looking into this, or charge a lower rate of interest for loans which are ESG compliant. That is important. So establishing ESG governance frameworks is very important in the organization because success begins with accountability. And therefore, what I recommend that is creating a dedicated ESG committees on the board level. And it has to be a top-down approach. It cannot be a bottoms-up approach. It has to be top-down. So therefore, whenever I consult the boards, I tell them that you need to have a dedicated ESG board level committee, which is again, of course, backed by cross-functional working groups that are actually able to implement across finance, risk, operations, all of that. Then the risk scenario modeling. I also help institutions incorporate climate-related financial risks, the transitions, physical to enterprise risk management. Now, this prepares them for future regulated requirements, like for example, TCFT or RBI's evolving climate mandates, which are going to come in. And there's a committee in RBI which is actually working on what sort of climate mandates need to be implemented in India. I've been privy to it, and there is some discussion which is going on there. Sorry. Prasad, the other important case, as in case of technology here also, is capacity building and cultural shift. So it's not just, oh no, cooler mein pani piya. That's not ESG and cultural shift. So it is training the frontline team, sensitizing the leadership, and embedding ESG into KPIs. That is very important. Green innovations, fintech partnerships. So I encourage collaborations with ESG from focused fintechs, carbon tracking, impact. See, unfortunately, we have not been able to have a carbon exchange in India. It's not legally licensed as yet. But I'm sure if we start with carbon tracking, then we'll have those tokens which could be traded, and then we'll be able to actually bring a monetary value in the carbon tracking and the focus that we have. So inclusive financial models is something that we'll be able to bring up. So the strategies would include embedding ESG into core strategy, establishing governance frameworks and risk modeling around it, and that is, I think, is very important for
I think then as you said, like I mean that's the way forward and everything. And then you give the example of the pullard, just using something like that does not mean like you have implemented the strategy. You have to really make sure that all the components and then things like you utilize while implementing this strategy. So coming to like your leadership and the mentorship. So you are recognized as like the thought leader and the mentor. So how do you approach mentoring the next generation leaders in the BFSI sector? Those who want to pursue their career in this.
Yeah, I think one needs to be a mentee to become a mentor, and we need to be a sponge to absorb things. So, mentoring to me is not about giving answers to people whom they ask questions. It's about asking the right questions. See, many times when people come to me, they have some questions, and I said that you may have 100 questions. I do have some questions for you. So, normally what I do is I ask them the right questions. That itself gives them a perspective to think, and that enables a clarity. So it's not like you have to teach them, but if you just ask them the right questions, I think the job is done. So I approached mentorship with a blend of strategic guidance, emotional intelligence, and more of a contextual learning. So not sounding theoretical. I think what is really important is mindset before the skill set. So I help the leader develop a system thinking mindset. That is what some of my mentors did to me. Before giving me the skill set, before telling me you learn delegation, they gave me the mindset to understand why that skill set is required for me. So for me, the first pillar is mindset before skill set. That's what I try to do. There. Second thing is courageous conversations. I mean, I create more like a safer space for the mentees where they can challenge assumptions, confront the blind spots, explore ethical dilemmas, especially in BFSI, where the decisions are, you know, they have a lot of systemic impact. And so the conversations have to be so, focused, productive, at the same time so casual that the mentee needs to be feel अरे मैं इनसे कुछ भी बात कर सकता हूँ. I can open up my heart. I can talk to anyone and anything about under the sun with it. So that sort of an environment is what I try to create. And the third thing is, be the bridge between legacy and innovation. आपके ज़माने हमारे ज़माने is no relevant. What we have learned, what we have implemented is of no relevance to the younger generation today. They are smarter, they are more well-read than what we were, and but driving the disruption. So so my role is more to mentor them to be the translators. Oh no, so that they should be able to speak the language of the regulator, the technologies, the boardroom, all of that. So when I mentor, startup, so it's a different strategy for different people. So when I also mentor, startup, fintech founders or mid-career professionals. So I mentor focusing on the mindset development, the courageous conversations, and bridging innovation and legacy with regulation. That I think is the approach that I have. It has proved correct until now, but I may have to modify in days to come. I'm not sure. But until now, these three pillars have helped me.
Correct. And as you said, like the mindset is what like it plays a important role. Because like if you do
Yes.
not have that like mindset, and then other thing, do you talk about like the courageous? So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you don't have that courage and then mindset, that's
Yeah.
basically like really
Yeah.
difficult. Right?
Yes, yes, and therefore I think you know what. So by end of the day, so when I tell these people, I normally tell them that see normally they ask na कि, "Hey, what leadership qualities I should have, what should I look at things, yeah. So I tell them just go to the basics, have clarity of thoughts, most importantly have ethical anchoring. You need to have a power to shift from algorithms and automation to ethical judgment. Now all the AI and ML will not tell you the ethical judgment, but you should be able to take the responsibility of what you're trying to build in, whether it is with speed, consciousness, whatever. So the ethical anchoring, whether I'm doing this is ethical or not, is something that they need to develop, which no AI will teach them. The second thing, the third important aspect is adaptability and curiosity. The curiosity of mind should never die. That is what is there, and at the same time they should also be able to adapt. The first part that you spoke of, if you're not adaptable, we are just dead. Then today's generation, they lack empathy. They are in the space of instant gratification. I don't blame them, but they are used to instant gratification. So the stakeholder empathy is something they lack. So I need to tell them and mentor them more on those. See, there are multi-dimensional impacts, and therefore every stakeholder in the process is important to bring in sustainability, and of course collaborative intelligence. That is the buzzword today.
Yeah. So I think you had already addressed like the next question I was asking about. So you already addressed it, because like I was about to ask you like what quality do you believe like these upcoming leaders, I mean it is essential for the effective leadership today, because you said like that for them like the everything is fast and quick everything. So like in changing and then financial landscape is also changing, so
Yes.
these qualities are also, yeah, you already called that out. So
Yeah.
courage to like, yeah.
We need to see one thing I would add. I mean, the most important thing I would like to add is, um, they need to have a clarity. So giving them or enabling them to have clarity about things, enabling them to holding to their what do I say, perspective, and also giving them a long term perspective. So let them be opined, let them be opinionated to their short term perspective, but we need to ask them questions to give them a long term perspective as well. And I think through mentoring and consultation, collaboration, we are able to uh, cultivate such leaders. Because see, the first question you asked me is, what was the leader and how my leadership evolved. So the same is going to be with that. They cannot be having ex prescribed qualities as leaders. It will have to be an evolving. And the pace of evolution today, Prasad, is much supersonic than the age when we were there. The pace is really, it's very difficult to adapt to the changing pace.
And I think they have like the exposures to like the social media, the other sort of the media. Then you have like the Google, the chat. Yeah,
Of information. Avalanche. That's when I meant clarity. There's such an avalanche of information
yeah,
that what is really critical for me is very difficult for them to understand. They get
right.
lost in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at times too much of the information becomes a problem. So like,
Yes.
what to take and what to leave. That you have to have like that judgment on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the best way is ask them questions and let them find their own answers. That usually helps.
Correct, correct. And I think rightly said, right? So, what trends you see like which will shape the future of the BFSI in next 5 years? Like, though you talked about like the blockchain and all like some time ago, but what are like the specific trends you think like which will shift I mean, in the future of the BFSI in next 5 years?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, hyper AI, hyper personalization, that is there. So if I were to, look at next 5 years. So I think first is hyper personalization, powered by AI and data analytics, because all financial products, services will become increasingly tailored to individual. I'll give you a small example. How many of us really put money in FD? And if we don't put money in FD, how will banks survive? So bank will have to look at a personalized FD solution, and that is something which I posted on my LinkedIn earlier also. And I got a very good response where many of the people said that no, we think fixed deposit is relevant. The nature of the product is relevant, but fixed deposit as it is offered by banks today is not relevant. So for every person, you just can't have a product and you sell it to the customer. You need to start selling solutions to customers. So hyper personalization powered by AI and data analytics is something which is the most important trend, and whosoever masters this will be the leader undoubtedly. The second thing is, as I said, banks may not last, but banking will remain. So platformification or creating a banking ecosystem is what is important. So banks will have to evolve into open platforms, integrating with fintechs, non-financial services, robotics, automation providers. Uh, you know, uh, you're going to have avalanche of data, and how you curate personalized experiences for your customers. So just the core banking, just your credit monitoring, just your credit scoring is not going to help you. That stickiness with the customer will remain only when you have a overall platform. When you integrate banking with, see, we breathe. Do we see the air? It's seamless. It's you don't even you can't see the air, but you breathe it. Likewise, you need not see a bank. You need not feel a bank. But banking has to be engraved, is not it's actually engraved in anything and everything that you do. It has to be that seamless. It has to be the breath that you take. And unless banks get into or evolve into a platformification or an ecosystem based platforms, this is not going to happen, and that is inevitable. They'll have to do that. Then again, so as I said, the finance that we are looking at today is not going to be relevant. Financial services will be embedded into everyday applications and devices. So I want to buy something on Zomato or I want to buy something on Amazon. That is the time when I will be doing banking, because I need it to be contextual. I'm going for a wedding, that is where I would need banking. I'm traveling, I'm looking for an experience, I would need banking there. So banking has to be omnipresent, and it just cannot be an app on my mobile phone. It just cannot be a UPI that I'm doing. It has to be omnipresent, and therefore embedded finance and decentralized financing is what I'm looking at. You will have alternate institutions coming into banking. So even AIFs will start giving loans now, and there are new SIFs that are being regulated by SEBI. They are going to be great competition to banks, and therefore banking in true sense will not remain as it is. It will evolve. You don't need a FD. You don't need to bank to keep an FD. You have mutual funds. You don't need a bank to get a loan. You have AIFs who will be doing it. Or transaction banking is something your Google Pay and Amazon Pay, everybody's offering. Why would you need a bank? A bank in per se. But the most important part is the faith that the customer has in the bank is something which they don't have everywhere. And therefore, banks need to be those and here be a bank to keep that. That is the challenging thing which I'll have to do. Then again, the fourth important aspect is I do see ESG to be a most important factor backing the decision making from lending to investing to everything in there. So, sustainable and ethical financing is the new norm that is going to be set. When it comes to technology, again, as I said, quantum and post quantum technologies, it has to be a shift in paradigm. The security paradigms will have to shift because today cyber security, so-called what we look at, is just not going to be enough in tomorrow's things. Quantum computing will be required. But having said all of that, Prasad, I firmly believe that the need of a tailor between to put in and fill in those gaps in these multi, applications and experiences, RPA combined with AI, the RPA 2 or 2.5 or 3, which I'm calling, is going to be the most important game changer in next 5 to 10 years, for sure.
See, what kind of like the preparation you would recommend to the financial institution? Because as you say, I mean, like the challenges are posed by the virtue of like the digital disruption and then changing customer expectations.
Yes, yes. Prasad, in my opinion, for these institutions, it's going to be very difficult challenge for them to really come about, winner in this. See, basically today they are very reactive. So the first thing, as I said, the mindset versus the skill set. So you can adopt a skill set unless you have the mindset. So the mindset change that needs to come in first is they need to be proactive, they need to be agile, and they need to have a renewed customer centric approach. I don't say they don't have, but it has to be a renewed customer centric approach. And then if I were to give them, so this is the mindset change that needs to bring. If I were to give the skill set or the technical or the tacticals that need to bring in, I think uh, legacy systems will have to give way to flexible platforms, and that can be integrated, integrating the emerging technologies quickly without large scale overhauls. So, for example, it may not be easy for them to just do away with legacy systems, but that's where the RPA comes in play, where you marry the legacy with emerging technologies quickly, and then the time to there's no more much of implementation time. The go to market is much quicker, so they need to be agile in that aspect and adopt more of robotics, RPAs, in stitching the two, the legacy and the emerging ones. uh, they also need to foster the culture of innovation. So for banks today, the main hurdle is tying up under partnerships with fintechs. So they need to encourage experimentation. Look what State Bank of India is doing. They have created an entire innovation hub within the bank itself, and that is the reason we see it changing face so quickly. So every institution needs to encourage experimentation through innovative labs, partnership with startups, and fail fast mindsets. ठीक है नहीं हुआ but try किया, fail hua, quickly move on to next one, but create an iterative idea. That is very important. Then prioritizing customer experience. It's not just about what you think should be the process. It's about what the customer is expecting in the instant gratification. And you also need to learn from other industries. It's not just about what's happening in banking. What is happening in tourism? What is happening in hospitality? What's happening the way customer is buying? You need to understand that mindset, and that customer experience design has to brought in by banks and institutions. That is very important. Uh, Today, it just cannot be me and me alone. It's a time of collaboration. So You need to collaborate beyond the traditional boundaries. We need to partner with fintechs, technology providers, regulators, and robotic firms to co-create value. That is very, very important. And the banks today don't have that mindset of, uh, you know, of marrying or having partnerships. They need to get into that mindset. Uh, Again, I cannot emphasize on uh, focus on talent and change management. And last but not the least, uh, a robust compliance and risk frameworks. That is very important. So, in my view, BFSI's future will belong to only those who balance the technological agility, ethical stewardship, and relentless customer focus. Only this combination is what I think, and they'll have to embed in their DNA. That is what I try to do through my consulting work. Embed it into their DNA.
I think it's well articulated. And as you said, openness is very important. Like if you're not open, then I think it's going to be then it's like a survival of the fittest. So those who are adopting this and then taking this approach, they will definitely have they will make a difference and age over their peers and competitors.
Corporate. Yes, yes, absolutely.
So last thing is what advice would you give to the young professional aspiring to make their mark in BFSI industry?
Um, well, I am not a person who would be able to, provide them or tease them. I don't think I'm that big. But see, one thing, as I've quoted in my LinkedIn also, uh, what Napoleon had said, if you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way. I think that is something which is very important. For that would be my advice. I try to adopt it, and that is my philosophy. And I think that actually keeps us grounded and stay patient, and it helps us in focusing on sustainable progress rather than quick wins. Today, the generation is about instant gratification, but that's not what is important. Sustainability with agility is what is important. Uh, See, I can only share my experience and what helped me, because I'm, a small grain in data and knowledge that universe has to show us. But I think what helped me is cultivating curiosity and a lifelong learning. Um I remember when my mother would tell me, "अरे 10th का exam दे दे फिर sukoon hai." Then you don't have to worry. Same thing happened for graduation. Same thing happened for post graduation. But today I don't tell this to my mentees or my daughter or anyone. I would say nothing. यार ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Whether it is 10th, whether it is 12th, whether it is there, you have to keep on learning. So better build that mindset that you have to keep on learning and have the curiosity. Question. That is it. Second thing I what helped me was build cross-functional empathy. So if you are able to understand your role, but at the same time understand the perspective of others, that actually will help you. So what makes you more valuable is if you are a problem solver and a connector. So that has helped me. So if you are able to build cross-functional empathy, you become the go-to person. That is what has helped me. Uh, as I advocate agility and resilience, not only in technology, but the change is constant. So we have to be comfortable with uncertainty, and we have to be ready for resilience. That I think is very important. My guru taught me one thing. He said, Vikrant, I'm not just talking about Spider Man. With great responsibility comes, with great power comes great responsibility. But especially in financial sector, the trust is very important, and therefore prioritizing ethical judgment, I think, is core to all. So that is something which is there. It always anchor you. You should be always able to anchor ethics in your decision and integrity. That is very important. Um, what helped me was another thing that thing helped me was seek mentorships. So find mentors who challenge and inspire you, and equally you should also be able to mentor others. One thing that helped me was the first thing when I took up a position, the first thing I did was I created my substitute. See, today people what they do is they would want to guard their knowledge. In my case, what I did was I first thing is I delegated everything to my juniors. I made them competent enough that they would be able to do whatever I am able to do. That actually gave me free time to grab on the things which my boss would do or I would help them. So I started freeing myself. So in my case, what I felt was rather than guarding things, if you're open up, you create leaders, you create succession planning quickly, it elevates you further. That's my experience. People may differ, I'm not sure, but that is at least that has helped me. And my company's name today is being Catalyst. So I am a very astute advocate for Catalyst. So don't wait for permission to innovate or improve. You take the initiative, you experiment, you learn from failures, you be the catalyst, and the world would be too glad to follow you. That is something which has helped me. I think that is the only thing which I can talk to them from my experience. But as I said, I'm no one to guide or tell them anything.
And I think you rightly put it. At the end of the day, you give them the responsibility. So delegating the responsibility after a day, making them accountable. Because like the moment like they are accountable, then they take the otherwise like it just becomes a responsibility without accountability. And then that gives you like the free bandwidth to really do more strategic thing. And then I think there was some Hindi movie like they used to say like there is a dialogue. So that says like hum wo guru hai, wo chele nahi guru banate. So that's exactly what you have said. So creator leaders, not the subordinates. Right. So,
Because see, that helped me. I was able to, overnight, I mean, my HR head called me and said, Vikrant, तेरा passport है क्या? I said, नहीं sir, I don't have a passport. He said, okay, I'm sending you a letter. You better apply for a Tatkal. I got a letter stating that you have been transferred to Dubai. No interviews, nothing of that sort. But the moment they said, no, we are confident that if at all you have to set up something out there, you are the best person because you will be able to set up a team and in no time we have seen how the way you have set it. So that actually helped me. So you create people, don't think they are going to be your rivals. They are indeed going to be your helpers. And even today when I'm consulting, when I reach out to them, they say, "Arey sir, आपके लिए कुछ भी." That bond gets built because you give them an opportunities.
and I think you have earned that respect. I keep telling the people the respect is to be earned. It's not respect doesn't come just because like you have the position or like or the power. I mean, it just comes like where people feel and then they start giving. So and you have rightly put that.
And
And
I think I'm sure even you, the way you handle your team and things. See, today's generation is more learned in true sense than what we are, and therefore, the moment you start telling हमारे ज़माने में they shut down
they
their
will not.
left it, and yet it's not relevant. See, what we have learned and what we have implemented is
Absolutely.
what relevance today. Things have changed so rapidly that there are more relevant. So in true sense, we cannot be guides to them. We can just be friends. कि हाँ चलो मिल के सुलझाते हैं, मिल के solve करते हैं. That's all we can do. We just can't be leaders for them.
Exactly. There used to be like 10 by 10 methods. So you need to like the set the company, look for a 10 years thing. That 10 by 10 has come down to 1 by 1. It's 1 by 1 because like you cannot have like the things beyond 1 year because like and especially in the hyper automation and Gen AI space, every 3 6 months the technology will change. And if you try to change it,
No, I would say it is 1 by 10 because now you have to partner with 10 to reach that 1.
exactly.
That is also
Exactly. So I think it's always like wonderful talking to you, Vikrant, and we can go hours and hours. But I really appreciate like you have taken time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate, yeah, and much appreciated. Thanks a ton for being a part of like our podcast. We
You
really
don't,
appreciate.
don't thank me. It has been a pleasure. In fact, the questions you asked actually took me down the memory lane, and it was more like a revision for me of what to do and what not to do. So it was really I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I do hope we are able to bring some value to the discussion that is there. But looking forward to more interactions in days to come, and wish you all a very wonderful life ahead, all of you.